Okay, welcome back. And let's talk about this article that was just posted on menofthewest.net. Looks like the article is actually from December 2018, so almost 2 years old. But let's read it and let me give my opinion. Adam Smith said that there is a lot of ruin in a nation, yet despite the conservative mantra that the United States remains the greatest nation on earth, I believe its days are numbered. So do I. Not only that, but I think a close look at history shows that we have been in decline for some time. I agree. However, acknowledging this fact need not lead to despair. I agree. Great powers have been rising and falling for all of human history. As we face the end of the American Republic, we are best served in preparing ourselves and our communities for the inevitable future rather than burying our heads in the sand and hoping it all works out. Voltaire said that history is only the pattern of silken slippers descending the stairs to the thunder of hob-nailed boots climbing upward from below. That is, civilizations in their youth are hard and ambitious, but are soft and decadent in their decline. Sounds just like Rome. Oh look, they mentioned Rome. In 500 BC, Rome was a city-state surrounded by larger kingdoms on the Italian peninsula. By the time of Christ, they ruled much of Europe, North Africa, and the Levant. Yet by AD 500, they ceased to exist in the West, and the city of Rome itself became little more than an ignored village. 7 centuries ago, the Ottomans were a tribe of nomads migrating west. In 1453, they toppled the remnants of the Eastern Roman Empire and captured Constantinople, the Queen of Cities, now called Istanbul. By the 20th century, however, the Ottoman Empire was in severe decline. Their defeat in World War I led to a revolution that ended the Sultanate and created the modern nation of Turkey. Great Britain was a disunited collection of English, Saxon, and Gaelic kingdoms in AD 500. By 1850, they controlled a quarter of the world, but by 1950, their empire had disintegrated despite being on the winning side of World War II. So true. Great empire, no longer. But look, they're still alive. They're still British, for now at least, for now. Of the many empires that have risen and fallen throughout history, I believe Rome is the closest analog to the modern United States. Rome's fall was quite gradual and hardly noticeable at the time. Many historians place the fall of the Western Roman Empire in the year AD 476. However, if you talk to a Tuscan landowner in 475 and then again in 477, he would likely not have noticed much of a change. 476 is a convenient place to draw a line of history because that was the year that the last official Roman emperor, Romulus Augustulus, was deposed by the barbarian general Odoacer. The emperors of this era had long been puppets of barbarian generals, though. The only difference in 476 was that Odoacer did not set up another emperor in Romulus's place. He merely did away with the office and continued ruling Italy as he had before. It is only many years later that one could look back and see that something had changed. Yeah, so that's basically what might happen to us here in the United States. We know about the 2033 prediction by Vox Day. I totally agree with it. By 2033, we will be fragmented territories, countries. Like in Eastern Europe, there will probably be a Pacific Northwest rural red area. There will be a Southwest Latino-based one. There's going to be some religious and ethnic territories, but it's not going to be 50 states all under the banner of the American flag. And it's going to be really interesting to see how these liberal cities, who are of course they're going to want to declare their own secession, but are they going to be able to survive on their own? I suppose with enough imports, because they're going to really have to pay up the ass to get their food from the other places that don't want to have anything to do with them on their mainland. So that's probably what it's going to look like, right? Once that happens, the United States will no longer exist as a single entity, and China will automatically become the most powerful country on Earth. Now, depending on how the Chinese are, they may just kind of take over without firing a single shot. I think that's always been their plan, right? Look at all the chaos that's been sown in the United States in the culture wars. I know that's China doing that. It's for sure China pushing this intersectional virus religion inside of our universities, and it's working for them. That's what they're doing, and look, it sucks, but they're doing it without killing us all, so I guess that's cool. I, for one, look forward to living with Christian Americans again, or whatever you want to call them. Okay, I believe that future historians will debate when the United States fell. What might it look like? Perhaps when the Constitution is abrogated or the capital moved from D.C. Perhaps it will be when a critical mass of states have seceded. The only thing that is clear now is that our once great country is in decline. I believe history will show that the U.S. peaked between 41 and 69, an era in time when our country won a world war, developed the atomic bomb, and landed a man on the moon. While there might be technological advances and military victories yet in our future, our energies are now being diffused into partisan fighting, identity politics, and enervating globalist endeavors. Exactly. And military victories, maybe, but not against any other big powers. Maybe against little villages in Afghanistan and Iraq or whatever, but certainly not against China. They can out-manufacture us for sure. They're basically who we were in the 40s, a manufacturing powerhouse. If we can get another 4 years of Trump, we may be able to turn that around, but if we get Biden or Biden's replacement, they're just going to literally try to undo everything that Trump just did, putting China firmly back in power. Allow me to pause for a moment to define a difference between America the place, America the country, and America the people. This is it right here, guys. America the place is a geographical location in the center of North American continent. This place has been inhabited by many peoples throughout history, from the Native American Indians to the English, French, Spanish, and German settlers, and now to new groups of immigrants coming here en masse. America the country is a political entity comprised of several states created in 1788 at the adoption of the U.S. Constitution, which evolved through various events such as the Civil War and the New Deal to become the thing it is today. On the other hand, the American people are the descendants of pioneers who tamed a wild land and built the greatest nation the world has ever seen. America the land might become home to different people. America the country might dissolve as empires do, but America the people will survive, and that is what this blog is all about. So it really is a white pill, folks. Like, you have to just internalize the fact that America is going to end in probably in the next 10 to 15 years, but the people will live on. They will. The American people. For most of its history, the United States was wearing Voltaire's hobnail boots. From winning an improbable victory against Great Britain in the Revolution to expanding westward across an entire continent, America was hungry and ambitious. In 1898, the U.S. defeated the old and tired Spanish Empire, taking by force its Pacific and Caribbean possessions. By 1945, the United States was left as the last nation standing over the ashes of a world ruined by war, its industrial output energized by mobilization and possessing the deadliest weapon ever conceived by mankind. It was at this point that we traded our work boots for silk slippers. So true. We sent all our work boots overseas. Think about it. The post-war period was the most prosperous time in history, and Americans enjoyed a higher standard of living than any previous generation could have dreamed. Rather than seeing this period for the historical outlier it was, however, the generation of Americans believed it was the new normal and the gravy train would keep rolling forever. And they still do, and they're called baby boomers, and they're the worst generation America's ever had. But I'm sure Rome had their own version of baby boomers. Turkey had their own version of baby boomers, you know? Just like people who got so used to things being so good, their optimum bias blinds them. They think it can never end. I've told people about my prediction. It's not mine. It's Vox Day's prediction of 2033 that I totally agree with. And they're like, that's a bold statement. How could you say something like that? It's like, have you read a history book? Can you tell me one empire that did not end? One. It's not a single one. It's like an empire is a person. A person always dies, no matter what. Nobody is living forever. Same with empires. Alas, it was not so. Despite the unprecedented period of prosperity following World War II, the U.S. began to struggle militarily, socially, and economically. After defeating mighty Nazi Germany and the Imperial Japan, the U.S. fought tiny North Korea to a stalemate, wasted 8 years in Vietnam only to withdraw and let Saigon fall, and began the 21st century by getting bogged down fighting insurgencies in Afghanistan and Iraq. Yes, and when people say, you know, when you have that gun control argument and people say, what are you going to do, resist the United States government if they come for your guns? It's like, well, Vietnam did. North Korea did. Iraq and Afghanistan have been. So yeah, these failures did not stem from a lack of technology or manpower, but from a lack of willpower. Meanwhile, American society fragmented into dozens of separate identity and interest groups, each clamoring for an ever larger share of the public purse, while the economy became more and more dependent on commodity bubbles and endless debt. Endless debt. The end of World War II also saw the United States begin to embrace a globalist position as opposed to a strictly nationalist position as in the past. We founded the United Nations and NATO, dedicated to helping achieve world peace and protect the weak from the strong. We sent troops to Korea, Vietnam, and Kuwait not to protect America's borders, but to defend the citizens of those regimes from would-be tyrants. Really, though? I don't know about that. That might be a naive view. We were spreading our empire, okay? That's what we were doing. Empires, when you play empire, it doesn't work out too well for very long. A pre-World War II citizen would be horrified to learn that not only do we still have troop stations in Japan, Germany, and Italy 75 years after the war, but we also have troops scattered around the world in Syria, Yemen, Niger, Iraq, Afghanistan, and South Korea. The globalist position is self-contradictory. In doing our best to avoid looking like an imperial conqueror, we end up mired in swamps of mediocrity for years on end. After the 9/11 terrorist attacks, support for invading Afghanistan and rooting out the Taliban and Al-Qaeda was very strong among American citizens. Yet who would have supported that invasion had they known we would still be there more than 17 years later? Yeah, exactly. While our soldiers are stuck in quagmires abroad, our government has become a quagmire of its own at home. The federal government was small and agile when the Constitution was adopted, but today has become a bloated swamp. Decades of legislation, mostly since the New Deal of the 1930s, have added countless departments and regulations. Whereas our constitutional government was once accountable to the people, now we have career bureaucrats operating outside of any oversight by the voters. President and Congress has come and go, but the deep state bureaucracy remains. Leftist feminist Professor Camille Paglia clearly sees the problem. Before I read that quote, let me just say, remember that quote? I think it's Jefferson. I don't remember who said it, but when the people fear the government, you have tyranny. When the government fears the people, you have liberty. What situation do you think we have in the United States right now? Do you think the government's really scared of the people right now? Maybe, but probably not. It could be coming, but I tell you what, people are definitely afraid of the government. The government has 6 different ways to F you all the way to Sunday with the IRS and all sorts of laws and bureaucracy. They can take you to court and bankrupt you without even convicting you. The government is way too big. The founders would be rolling in their graves. I remembered seeing this bumper sticker. I've seen it a few times, but it's a bumper sticker on cars, and it's a picture of George Washington, and the quote that he says is, "Me and my homies would have been stacking bodies by now." You're damn right. George Washington would have been stacking bodies by now. This was not the intention of the founding fathers. It was always supposed to be very small and limited. Anyway, Camille Paglia says, "I have been trying for decades to get my fellow Democrats to realize how unchecked bureaucracy in government or academia is inherently authoritarian and illiberal. A persistent characteristic of civilizations in decline throughout history has been their self-strangling by slow, swollen, and stupid bureaucracies." Very good, Camille. These, then, are the signs of the decline of the U.S. and the last days of the Republic. We involve ourselves in foreign wars and then are neither able to win nor to withdraw. Our economy coasts, built upon bubble after bubble. Our government has become bloated and corrupt and entirely unaccountable to the voting public. We lack the will to enforce our own borders, with politicians on both sides having incentive to import millions of foreigners to replace American citizens. Our infrastructure is failing and the cost for replacing it skyrocket while the jobs never get done. We outsource manufacturing to developing nations in exchange for cheap goods. Our politicians are so consumed with greed for power that they spend all their time attacking each other rather than doing anything for the sake of their country. A sizable percentage of our elite class sees themselves as globalist citizens of the world whose loyalty is not to their community, state, or nation, but to some amorphous idea of humanity, which in practice usually means they are loyal only to their bank accounts. For a sizable percentage of regular folks, what is on TV is more important than any large questions of society. Men and women no longer marry, and children are not raised in stable nuclear families. They are, but way too many of them are not, if you know what I'm saying. Way too many. Colleges no longer educate but indoctrinate. Snark has replaced gravitas in journalism and humor in entertainment. Something that cannot go on forever won't. President Trump promised to make America great again, but it will take more than a president to accomplish this. Yes, for sure. He's just buying us time. Another 4 years would be nice, but this is the inevitable, folks. It will be painful and protracted like a treatment for cancer. It will not come down from the top, but will come from individuals, families, and communities. The greatness of America was never in her government, her military, or even her constitution, but in her people. The decline of America has been slow thus far, but I believe there will come a time when things will happen quickly. Dissolution, secession, and perhaps even civil war on the horizon. Yeah, November. 3 months. November 4th is the day after the election. 3 months. I say this not to depress you, but to give you hope that by seeing the coming cataclysm, we can survive it and thrive as we rebuild a great nation. What comes next will not be the same as what comes before, a single nation comprised of 50 states with its capital in Washington, D.C., but the spirit of America can survive if its people survive. At the end of the recent Marvel movie Thor Ragnarok, the land of Asgard is annihilated. The people survive, though, and search for a new home. The characters recognize that the nation was not the land, but the people. I believe that this is analogous to America in the 21st century. The United States of America, its flag and its constitution might not survive, but the people will endure. The same strain of men who left old Europe for the New World, who carved a nation out of a savage wilderness, who built the greatest nation the world has yet seen, this strain will survive and grow again, building on the ashes of what was. Take heart, though we live in interesting times. Yes, man. He wrote this 2 years ago almost, but it's all true. It's truer than it ever has been. And it's a white pill, folks. Look at all you folks on Social Galactic talking about Beartaria. I think it's amazing. And Big Bear yesterday posted a map. It's all over the country, folks. There's thousands of you, thousands upon thousands who are raising children in nuclear families in rural areas. And I'm so proud of you guys. Keep living that dream. You may be the backbone of the future of this people. And with that, folks, I just have a few recommendations. The collapse is coming, so I want you to take preparations. Obviously, the basics, right? Food, water, medicine, guns, weapons, ammunition. If you need body armor, get body armor. If you need melee weapons, get melee weapons. But there's something you never hear people talking about in terms of emergency preparations, and I'm going to tell it to you right now. Guys, if you think you're going to survive any kind of a physical hot civil war and be 300 pounds, you're sorely mistaken. You need to lose the weight and you need to get strong. You need to look like a Spartan out of 300. That's the only way you're protecting your family. You're going to have a heart attack on the battlefield. A lot of you guys are not ready for a fight. Get prepared, figure out the diet you need, track your weight every day, and drop all that body fat so you can become a real man who is ready to be athletic and ready to fight. Because I think there might be a fight coming. We'll see. But the age of decadence needs to end, and it needs to end within all of us. No more sloth, no more gluttony. Come on, folks, let's do this, all right? Anyway, that's from Men of the West. This is Romans signing out.